Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Final Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, Finn, Punk Raider, and Denver Dave. We're here to look at the first round of the NFL draft. Boys, how are we doing?
Some better than others, I assume, but very good.
It's that time of the year, boys.
Some bleary-eyed, more teary-eyed.
Yeah. Me and
Not
Jim
me.
stayed up abusing each other on WhatsApp throughout most of the first round.
I am too old for that
I
shit.
was sleeping like a baby, boys.
Yeah, me too. Staying up till 4 a.m. just to watch Commissioner Goodell read some names. I mean,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you
Five in the
two?
morning.
Was it 5? Yeah.
Oh,
I know
sorry.
I was up watching it by 6:30, but you know.
Well, I went to bed at 4:30 and I got up at 7:25. So yeah, I'm properly hanging out my arse at the moment.
Meanwhile,
I had
Jim's
the
only
same.
just got up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish
Jim
I
got
had
up
to take
at
Tommy to school in the morning.
10 to 5.
No lie-in for Jim. No, I've been painting the living room as well today because technically it was a day off. So yeah, didn't get away
Well,
with
you
that.
weren't
The thing
working,
is,
so
he's so tired that it's not actually his living room. He's just randomly broken into someone's house and delivered 9-inch
Neighbours gonna have a
roller.
big shock when they come home.
Yeah.
But we're here just to talk about the first round. We're going to do our full review next week, obviously, when all the picks are in. But just for night one, what do we think, boys? Obviously, a lot of chalk happened at the start of the draft. You know, everyone knew Caleb Williams was going number one.
I was
Jaden
stunned by
Daniels,
that.
Drake May. No one
why
pushed
why
up. There
did
was
it
some
take why did it take Chicago
thoughts.
so long to put the pick in?
It
That always
doesn't.
happens.
It
That always
doesn't.
happens.
It's the TV companies drawing out the time so
Wow.
that their experts can chat about
Can
things.
put their little words of wisdom in.
Or they're
It's-
waiting for
it's-
a crazy
it's-
trade up. But usually it's the
Well, yeah,
Bears that
but
do
it's
that.
it's
So
just yet another reason not to bother watching it because they drag it what should be a 45-minute thing out into like 4 hours.
Yeah,
it's
but
amazing.
we,
isn't it?
ridiculous.
45
we do that
minutes.
occasionally.
Yeah, man. You can
Anyway.
make your pick in less than 10 minutes. Come on.
3 quarterbacks
don't-
done in the first 3 picks. Marv Harrison Jr. at 4 to the Cardinals. They didn't trade out of it. We didn't think they would because they had so many picks anyway. Why trade out when you can get a blue chip talent like that? And then the Chargers go and take Joe Alt, the left tackle. Exactly what Harbaugh says he does every single time. He takes the left tackle and builds from the trenches. I guess we're
I
happy
think
with that, right?
I think it's important to point out at this point that we kind of called it. We did say he would either go Joe Alt or he would go with the sexy receiver, just because that's what he did. And I suppose he just reverted to type and went with the big nasty offensive lineman. Can't say
Yeah.
I blame him, but you know, I think we did really well as a unit on our picks. If people go and listen
We did
to
better
our
than
mock
last year.
draft,
I think we did.
they
yeah.
will see that we got 8 absolutely spot on, and the majority of the others we got the right position, just didn't have the right players because you know weird and wonderful little drafts happened, little trades happened, and you know certain teams threw spanners in the works by picking completely random players.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at matching players, it's always really difficult because if you've got one guy going, then and they pick the other guy, by definition, you've got 2 wrong.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
because you've missed that, and pick 8 without wanting to.
Pick 8. What a
Yeah.
ridiculous pick!
Well,
that is.
without wanting to provide a spoiler, that threw a spanner into many a works. But
Well,
Yeah,
I think
just
the
a
pick
little
5
bit.
threw a bit of a spanner because
Yeah.
every single mock draft had the Titans taking Joe Alt at 7, and he wasn't there, so they took JC Latham, which
Yes, they took
I'm a bit
next
worried about this
available.
one. Well, next
We'll
available,
see.
he's an offensive tackle, but he might be a guard. And so
Well,
might not
does it
be
matter?
the solution.
They need everything on the offensive line. So
Do you know,
True.
it's high
Tackle,
up for a
guard.
guard. It's high up for a guard. And then of course, Atlanta Falcons, they do what everyone thought they were going to do and take Dallas Turner at 8. Every single mock draft in the world was doing that, except they took Michael Penix Jr.
As soon
Black
as
jaws everywhere.
as soon as that happened, the first thing I thought is Denver aren't moving down. There's no chance that we're moving down. The only way we were ever going to do that is if there was 3 quarterbacks available. So if JJ McCarthy was going down, and by the time it came to us, there was Nix and Penix both available. And as soon as Penix was picked up, I was like, we're not going to have a second rounder.
As soon as that happened, I thought there's going to be about 4 teams here that are all scrabbling to get a trade in to get that last quarterback.
There was two.
Definitely
Apparently-
the Vikings. I mean, they did move
yeah.
up in the end. But...
Yeah, the Vikings did move up in the end, and apparently there was an AFC West team on the phone. Now, it hasn't been specified which one, but I suspect it was probably the Broncos.
I know for
I
a
wonder.
fact that we were talking to the Reds earlier in the day, and
Who?
basically,
Ooh, easy
sorry,
there.
Commanders,
Have to bleep
earlier
that.
in the day, and basically everything was far too rich at that end, so
Yeah.
we just said, forget it, we're just not even going to bother. So at that point, the only teams really that are going up are the ones that couldn't live with a bridge quarterback for a year or don't have
Really
a bridge
desperate.
quarterback for a year. Yeah.
So-
it's where the real desperation
Hi,
comes
Dave.
out.
Well, I was watching a Broncos podcast, and one of the things that they mentioned is the Broncos were on the phone basically saying, look, we're interested in trading up to 10. And the team who they were on the phone to basically said, look, we've only got one of
Jets.
we've got another team who are interested, and that's the Vikings, at which point the Broncos said, cool, we're happy, we're not going to move up.
Yeah,
Because
They
they know
knew JJ McCarthy then.
it
Yes,
was
exactly.
McCarthy.
Because you knew.
So-
That's
yeah.
why.
If it had been, okay, we've got another team, if they'd have just said we've got another team on the phone, not said who it was, it becomes a different conversation. But I think the Vikings moved up and got their guy, and the Broncos got who they were happy with. Can we go back to pick 8 just for 1 second?
Yeah.
Go on then.
What's going on?
I don't get it. at
That's
all.
a great
I don't-
question.
So
What
just
was the thinking in
for
the room that
clarity-
said, "I've got a good idea. Let's go and draft a quarterback"?
So
Part
for
of me
clarity,
thinks,
they
part of me
picked up.
thinks that everything was going too normal to
They
start
just
with,
wanted
and
to
they just
shake
went,
it up a
let's
bit.
just spice this up because this is a bit boring.
Do you remember that thing? This is not really going to work on a podcast, but do you remember that thing what you used to have when you were a kid and you used to open them and go like that? And what were they called?
Oh, the little flapper
I know.
things.
The
Yeah,
little
I know.
flapper
what you
things
mean.
where you go like
Papery
that.
things, yeah,
The
yeah.
Pick a
papery
color,
things.
pick
Like you
a
count-
number,
yeah, pick
and
a
Yeah.
pick a number,
it's
yeah.
like
And
telling
they
a
did,
fortune.
they did that, and
yeah.
they pulled it open and went, right, we're going quarterback. I think that's generally the only way I can actually describe the way that they did it.
Tombola.
So they signed Kirk Cousins on basically it's a 3-year, but it's basically a 3-year, but it's a 4-year because you can get it after
I think
3.
there's an out after 2 because all his guarantees are
I
in the
think
first
it's
2
3.
years. So
I think it's 3 because there's even those guarantees are in the first 2 years, there's still dead cap in year 3, but it's not significant. So they signed a 4-year, $120 million deal with $85 million fully guaranteed, and then went and picked up an older quarterback, 8th overall.
Yeah, so
It
there's
doesn't
two
make
things
sense.
that I think happened here as to explain this. One, they want a solid backup for Kirk Cousins if he does go down, because obviously he had an Achilles injury last year. We haven't seen him play since. The second one is that they had a tampering case earlier on, in the last year, about recruiting Jonathan Gannon, and
True.
they were told that court case they haven't been punished yet for it. So they weren't punished with any draft picks this year, but they're anticipating draft picks being taken away from them next year. And the state of the QB class this year compared to next year was such a thing that they would go, well, we need to take the guy now and have him sit even if it's for a year. We don't know what's coming, but we think it's going to be at least the first round that we lose.
Yeah,
So
but
that's why
if,
they're taking Michael
if,
Penix.
hang on a minute. If their thinking is, oh, well, next year we're going to be in position to draft a really top quarterback and we don't want
Well, they
to
won't.
miss out on that. Well, hang on a minute. What does that say about your team this year? You've just gone out and spent $100 million on your quarterback because you reckon you've got this offense that can, take you places. What you needed to do was strengthen your defense to help your offense take you places, not look at, oh, we might possibly, what are they going to do this year? End up 4 wins and, oh yeah, we wanted the quarterback next year, but we couldn't do it. It's nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Draft for what you need now, not for what you need in 3 years' time.
If Kirk Cousins goes down in week 3, then they do need a solid backup.
My mum always used to say to me, don't go shopping when you're hungry because you'll spend more money.
Yeah,
and it feels like that's kind of what they've done. They've made a bit of a bonehead decision. If I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm furious. I'm
Especially if I didn't know about it. Yeah.
They did not.
apoplectic. They asked the head coach and GM were asked and basically said, what was Kirk Cousins' reaction? They said, well, it's up to him to tell you. They said, well, and then the interview, one of the persons in the press conference said, well, we spoke to his agent, and his agent said they weren't informed until you were on the clock. Is that the case? And they said, yeah. And they said, well, they also said that Kirk Cousins was really upset. Is that the case? And they went, yeah. Like,
Really? Yeah.
yeah.
Shock horror.
Just
well.
you know, talk about point out the bleeding obvious. But yeah, as soon as that happened, I thought, okay, they've just made it interesting.
This
But
is what Terry Fontenot does, though. I mean, look at what he's done the last few drafts. It's been Bijan Robinson in the top 10. It's been Kyle Pitts in the top 10. It's been Drake London in the top 10. He only drafts offensive players, and he managed to get Raheem Morris on board with taking another quarterback. I'm guessing they've sat him down and said, "This is the punishment we know is coming down the pipe."
Do you think
we need to take
Raheem
a guy
Morris
now.
Do you think he was standing there going, "Wait, what?"
He's got well, he has no ultimate say on it. It's up to Terry Fontenot and Arthur Blank.
It is. That's
Yeah,
fair.
that's the.
I mean,
So look, we need
I
to
don't
get
know.
so this year, next year we'll do defense, or
It
later on in the
just-
draft, we'll the rest of the draft can be defensive players, I guess.
I mean, it's always fun when there is a weird and wonderful pick like this in
Yeah.
the top 10 because it shakes everything else up.
It's normally
But-
you lot, in
Yeah,
fairness.
well, no, our normal trick is overreach for a player of need. So, we'll
Well-
need a left tackle, so we'll go and pick the one that everyone's ranking at about number 28 in the top 10 rather than
You kind of
rather than the actual one, you know what I mean? Rather than a position that's there,
it
so-
does mean the Bears had an absolute touch by getting Roma Dunze at 9,
Well,
having to
we
move up
called
for
it.
him.
We absolutely called it that they were going to tie together Caleb and Adunze.
Mhm.
I mean, the shirt sales at Soldier Field are going to go through the roof.
Lucky you
It's
listened to
gonna be
me then, Punk,
ridiculous.
wasn't it, rather than Dave about that one.
Well, I'm
Then-
pretty certain you were trying to tell me to take a tackle. So,
No.
yeah, I think you
I
were.
said trade
You
out
were some
unless
back.
Adunze's there. If Adunze's there, you got to take him.
I think you
No.
offered everyone, didn't you, that for that one, Jim?
I did
Just
not.
So,
Yeah,
I
I
did
think you
not.
pretty
I
much
did
just so you
not.
could at
50
one point
players.
claim
No,
it
no,
that
no,
you
no.
got one up.
Go back and listen to the tape, Finn. It's fine. Then, of course, the Vikings move up one spot with the Jets to take JJ McCarthy to make sure that the Raiders or the Broncos don't get JJ. At that point, the Jets take Olu Fashanu, who is a pass blocker extraordinaire. No good in the run block, but very good at pass blocking. So Aaron Rodgers got no excuses. And then, of course, we get to one of our picks,
This is a glorious one.
the Denver Broncos. How did you
Here
manage
we
to pull
go.
off this coup, Dave, of getting
know,
Bo
right?
Nix?
Oh, we got the guy that we were after. He was
How did he fall
apparently
so far?
on the Broncos big board. They had him as the third ranked quarterback after Williams and Daniels. So we're not getting the guy that we wanted.
That says a lot in of itself that we could unpack. But
Reach.
I mean,
But it's not a reach.
come on,
It
Dave.
is
Let's
a
hear your
reach.
copium about Bo Nix.
So it's not a reach because what's the alternative at this
What-
point?
What's your
hang on,
ceiling?
hang on.
What's your ceiling for him?
No. What's our alternative
What?
at this point?
What's your hope that he's going to get you to?
Okay.
Super
What is
Bowl.
our listen? What is our alternative at this point? Is it because we need
Stidham.
we need to drive? No, we need to get a quarterback out of the first round, or we need to get
Why?
who we believe to be a serviceable quarterback.
Why do you have
So
to have a
if-
quarterback in the first round?
No, not
I
the
can
first
think
round.
of
We have-
many quarterbacks that came out of rounds 3, 4.
He
and
could
we
have
have-
been there in
very
round
good.
3.
We have to leave.
No, I'm
we
not saying
wouldn't-
him. But
We have to be able to leave the draft with
Yeah.
the guy who we believe is the best prospect. So if we trade down and Bo Nix is taken by somebody else, then we're up a creek without a paddle. And we can't sit here and say that no other team would have not taken him, because a few picks earlier we saw Michael Penix go at 8 and no one saw that coming. So
and that's,
anyone,
that's what set the cat amongst the pigeons. That's what I'm
100%. So
saying.
that as soon as that happens, you're like, look, you can't take the chance of not being there, so you just take the guy that you believe is good enough.
So back to my question then, Dave. What are you expecting from him?
What am I expecting? I'm expecting him to, for next year, probably have a steady season, 25 touchdowns, 3,500 yards. That'll be good enough. Am I expecting
For
us to
what?
win 15
Good,
games?
good enough for what?
No.
15 games?
No, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not. I'm
Oh,
expecting us to be
Oh, good. Right.
I'm expecting us to be competitive because how many times last year did we lose in games 13-12 and stupid, silly scores like that? We've now improved what I hope is the position. The thing is, I'm really excited by it because I like Bo Nix in college. I hope it's transferable. And the problem is that my excitement of a new quarterback coming in doesn't need to be confused with you thinking that I'm here saying he's the next savior. It's not. We've got a quarterback coming into our franchise, and that is exciting. Whether he's good or not, it will ultimately work itself out. But rather than watching players getting paid far too much money and not being expansive in the way that he plays, instead we're getting someone who can push the ball and is willing to push the ball down the field.
Well, we'll see. He hasn't done it yet, Dave. Calm down. He's not done it
Exactly.
yet.
No, but
sat
that's
here
what I'm saying though. I'm just excited about having a prospect. That's all it is.
Sure.
I'm excited about having a guy who I really like in college.
And
It's a
you
guy I've
should be.
seen numerous times. Exactly. I'm
I just-
excited by it.
I do worry because I don't know of any quarterback that Sean Payton has ever drafted that has actually been decent.
I don't think he's drafted a quarterback in the first round before. That's
I don't
why.
think he's drafted a quarterback full stop looking at this list.
No, because he.
Oh no, Sean Canfield,
Oh,
round
yeah,
7
yeah.
pick in
The legend.
2010.
Well,
But
there was
that
a
doesn't-
connection between
but
Sean
that
Payton
doesn't
and Bo Nix
matter
because they
either.
went to high school together. So it
Oh,
was
well,
a
that makes it
natural,
all
natural
right.
Ah.
fit for him to.
Yeah. You do know.
There you
You do
go.
know he's like 6 months older than Michael Penix, right? Michael Penix is like the
I
same
did the same
age.
joke with Penix if you want me to.
About the same age as me.
He's 24.
Anyway, we're not. This isn't the Broncos podcast, all right? You made your bed. You're gonna have to lie in it for a couple of years at least.
I'm perfect. Listen,
I
and
know
if it
you
doesn't
are.
work out in a couple of years' time, we'll try and we'll
Do
be
it all
picking
again.
high. We'll try
I'm
and pick
looking
someone
forward
else.
to this season now for the Broncos. Then at
So am
13, the
I.
very next pick, Punk, you get Brock Bowers, tight
I,
end
I,
from Oregon State.
what?
Oh, Georgia, sorry, Georgia. I was looking at Talib
That's pretty
Swagger.
much the live reaction of what I was doing when I saw that pick. I was like, what? What? Well, okay. Look, at the end of the day, it was the best player on the board. Raider fans are not used to the best player on the board being picked up, regardless of position. Yes, we need cornerbacks. Yes, we need some offensive linemen. You know what? There's still a whole bunch of them available day 2, day 3. So, I think going off what I've watched, just the kind of little YouTube highlight videos and stuff, I've got a funny feeling that Mr. Bowers might feature in the power plays a lot next season. He just looks like a phenomenal athlete that can run people over, get himself open, catch the ball. I love it. I think it's a great pick. We can now run 2 tight end sets. At the end of the day, the quarterback wasn't there. We didn't reach for one. Great, that's fine. I'm happy with the decision making. Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I think it will prove out in time to be a good pick. I just hope that the coaching staff can now come back together and go, right, we now need to target line, cornerback, etc., etc.
Yeah, now do the needs rather than the
Yeah,
BPA.
exactly. Rather than the best player available. And we're picking at 44 next, so there should still be a decent cornerback or offensive lineman on the board.
Well, we'll get into the future picks in a second, Punk. We're just
I'm
gonna go through
just
the
happy with
others,
it. He just
Good.
looks like a really exciting player.
Mm.
But although I was shocked to hell when it first happened.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Talib Swagger went to the Saints. Obviously, they can't draft a lineman for love nor money. Laiatu Latu, the first defensive player then at pick 15. That's the first time by like double the amount of picks.
I think that's
before a
something
defensive player's gone.
we have to talk about as well. The fact that it took 15 picks for a single defender to come off the board, and when they did, it's probably the one with the worst injury history.
Yeah, the most question
But
marks.
with the highest ceiling as well, potentially.
Maybe,
Yeah.
potentially.
He is awesome.
Medical stuff is a big question mark, isn't it?
Yes. And it was kind of wasn't the position I thought that the Colts really needed, but I think they just had been sat there and went the ceiling's enormous, so we
The
should
thing
take it.
is, if you're playing, you think about your team lining up against the Colts. You think about all the things you may be worried about that they do. Pass rush isn't really one of them. You're not going to go,
No.
oh, bloody hell, we're up against that fabled Colts pass rush. It's just not a thing. So is it a need? Probably.
Oh, it's definitely a need. I just thought that maybe a cornerback or someone to help Richardson would have been higher up the list. But there you go. Interesting to see what happens there. And then of course we get to Finn. Your team picked in the first round. It's a bit of an oddity,
did.
but you picked the player that we said you were going to do, Byron Murphy II out of Texas.
Over the moon.
Come on, talk to us about Byron
Over the
Murphy.
moon. I think
Yeah?
there was obviously new era with Mike McDonald. I think there
Yeah.
was a few, obviously GM still there. And he typically does draft well, but obviously with just looking at how and where we're trying to go, there was still a few, uncertain thoughts around it all. But so great to see that we got the guy that we raft and needed as well. I mean, defense over the past few seasons, particularly against the run, has been in some of the worst across the league. And so to have a big guy coming in to shore that up, and especially with McDonald's defensive mindset, is going to be a huge boost. So yeah, just pleased that we were able to get the guy we're after. And I think coupled in with some of the other pieces that we've got, and sort of the new heads in the new era, there's a lot of excitement.
No dissent on the Seahawks Twitter. Everyone's happy with the pick.
Everyone is happy. Yeah.
Awesome.
I fail to believe that. There's always an idiot,
There's always
always an
Well-
idiot on Twitter.
Always. Yeah. Well, I wasn't looking at your tweets, Dave.
Raider Nation Twitter has been off the chain when that pick was made. It was
Happy?
absolutely 50-50.
Okay.
50% of people going, why the hell haven't we moved up and drafted the top 5 players all at once? And the other half are going, you know what? That's just a really sensible pick, and we're just not used to actually having good picks. So
If we're talking idiocy, I see your Raider Twitter and raise you Broncos Twitter.
We're not touching that tonight. Then Minnesota Vikings trade up again 6 spots with Jacksonville to take Dallas Turner. So the guy that we thought was going at 8 goes at 17.
I
they gave
really
up quite a
like
bit to
it.
get this as well. They gave up, what was it? So the 23rd pick, the 167th, that's a 3rd round pick, I believe, and then the 3rd and 4th next year as well. So pretty good move there for the Jags, moving down. And as we're going to find out, they still got the pick they probably wanted.
I know it does sound like they gave up a lot for it, but I really like that pick. I mean, everybody and their dog had Turner going in the top 10. So in theory, they've picked up two top 10 players in positions of need for them, because obviously Darnell Hunter's now at the Texans.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. I think the Vikings, have done really well on day one. I think they've targeted the players they wanted. They've got the players they wanted. Now it's picking up pieces.
They have given up a lot though of their draft picks. They haven't got an awful lot left. I think they got a 4th rounder, and then nothing until the end.
We saw it last year with the Texans, though. You see your guy you want, move up, go and get him. The thing is, the Texans knew that they were in not win now mode, but they were, they wanted to have people starting. They wanted to, they wanted all the guys in and playing there and then, which leads me to believe JJ McCarthy is going to start day one.
It's very possible.
Yeah,
I think
because
so.
if you're moving up for McCarthy, moving up for Turner, you're making a statement. Let's not forget also last time that happened, and the time before that, when teams moved up to go and get the guys that they wanted, offensive and decent defensive rookies of the year. Year before that was the Jets with
Sauce and
what's it called?
Wide receiver.
I can't
Garrett
remember what his
Wilson.
name is.
Garrett Wilson.
There you go. So yeah, it's happened twice on a row. Make it a hat trick.
We'll see. Big boy Amarius Mims went to the Bengals. Not happy about that. Jared Verse, Dave's least favorite defensive end, went to the Rams at 19. So, of course, with all these 6 quarterbacks going in the first 12 picks, the rest of the skill players were depressed down. We got our pick, and we took Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle from Washington. Extremely happy about this. Didn't expect him to be there at that time. So, yeah, he's awesome. Very happy about that. We needed tackle. We're still going to have to address center and probably wide receiver and another cornerback. But for where we were, that guy fell to us. So pretty much the whole of Steelers Twitter was happy about that last night.
Both of you.
Both of us, yeah, all of us.
Okay.
I've listened to some podcasts during the day as I've been painting, and everyone seems very happy about Troy Fautanu. Dan Moore was a third-round pick for us at left tackle, and he's had some criticisms. I think he's got a little bit better over the years. Have settled down a little bit.
Yeah, but he's still
quite
not
as
good
much
enough.
of a no, but he's not quite as much of a liability. But it's going to be Broderick Jones probably move over to left tackle, and Fautanu goes in the right tackle in a competition with Dan Moore.
The one thing I'll say, and this is going to sound bitter, and it's not. It genuinely, this comes from a place of advice. When you start Russell Wilson next season and he's trying to extend the play and he's hanging onto the ball for ages, and a pass rusher gets past the tackle and everyone's going, oh, he's rubbish. He can't hold a pass rusher for 9 seconds. He's not rubbish, because we had a very similar thing last year when we went and got Mike McGlinchey from the 49ers and everyone was going, he's garbage. Listen, your season's going to begin when Wilson gets shoveled out, which will happen, and Fields comes in, and then you'll see how good he is. But don't be surprised if you get a few people who say Fautanu's not good enough, because he is good enough.
I'll bear that in mind. Thank you, Dave.
It just feels like a very Steelers pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
finally building back from the trenches.
No nonsense, sensible pick. It felt very Steelerish, which you haven't had for the last couple of years. So.
Well, we've got a brand new bag
year.
now with Omar Khan, mate. We're on the right path now. Chop Robinson went to the Dolphins at 21. That was interesting because obviously he's a pass rush extraordinaire, but he doesn't do anything else, so he's just a missile. Him and Jalen Phillips.
They're obviously feeling the loss of Wilkins a lot more than they thought they did.
Very different players.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but we had the Dolphins down as looking at the offensive line. So you know, I can't quite see the mindset of what they were trying to do there, because you know they've lost Xavier Howard, they've lost quite a lot of pieces on defense.
Well, towards the end of last season, when Miami were playing, they lost Bradley Chubb from pass rush, and they looked impotent.
This is true.
And Jalen Phillips at the same time as well.
And trust me, I know impotence when I see it.
I also heard Chris Collinsworth on PFF saying that because it's so hot down in Miami, you do need to be able to rotate your edge rushers. So it's not completely stupid to have too many down there.
It's just a surprising one, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude's nickname's Chop because that's the only move he's got.
Literally
is. That's all he has.
But it's such a great job. And then, of course, the first cornerback off the board just falls to the Eagles, who desperately need the cornerback. And they take Quinion Mitchell, the best one in the draft, from Toledo. Keeps getting away with it. The Jags, who have moved down, then take Brian Thomas Jr., who I said they should do, wide receiver from LSU. He's awesome. Gives them a massive new threat there. The Lions then move up in the draft to take Terrion Arnold, the second cornerback from Alabama. So the Dallas Cowboys move down.
That
makes perfect sense.
That's huge value. A lot of people had him go in sort of top 10.
Well, we had him in ours. In ours, he was coming to us at 13.
Yeah.
And you know, for the Lions, we've said all along that you know they desperately need defensive backfield cornerbacks, because you know their pass defense has been garbage. But you know, I think for them it made perfect sense. You know, package a few things together, jump up above people, and get one of the two best cornerbacks in the draft.
Yeah, they only gave up a third rounder, to move up 5 spaces for that move.
Yeah, two things for this. Terrion Arnold's now playing next to Brian Branch in the secondary. And of course, they know each other pretty well from college.
Yep.
Second thing is, as soon as that pick was made, did you see how empty it was at the draft? Like 450,000 people just went, right, I'm going to... They just went.
Well, that ensures it's the only time they'll be in Detroit, because if you can't keep the crowd there for the first night, then they're not going to come back. They'll be at Green Bay next year. Green Bay make a point of sticking around in sub-zero temperatures.
There's only 20 people in Green Bay.
Oh, they'll all be out though, and they'll stick around for the second pick.
I'm gonna have a look, see if it's been announced where the draft next year is.
It's Green Bay.
I just told
you. Goodell announced it on the stage. Yeah.
Good lord.
Talking of Green Bay, they're up next at 25. They took Jordan Morgan, This is actually, I don't know if you've heard this, but I don't think the Packers fans are too happy about this. Now, that's one of the many reasons why I don't like Packer fans. I think they were probably hoping for Cooper DeJean or someone, but they weren't impressed. They hadn't done the due diligence on Jordan Morgan. Didn't know what we knew and what we'd seen. Obviously, me and Dave are very high on him.
I called as soon
Extremely
as it came
polished
up.
tackle.
I
We're not
called
happy
it and
they've
said,
taken
Well, they
him.
need to replace Bakhtiari. It's a
Oh, yeah.
sensible pick.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
I said, they're entitled little buggers. So, yeah, they've not been happy
"Aren't we
about it.
all?"
Well, they're a bit more than others. The Buccaneers took Graham Barton, the Swiss Army knife along the offensive line at 26.
So I don't know a huge amount about him, but I'm assuming he's fairly reasonable.
He's pretty decent. Only like 4 pressures in 3 years from Duke.
Yeah, he's played across all of the line. He does a bit of everything.
Cool.
Cardinals took Darius Robinson, a defensive lineman, with the 27th pick. That was the move they got from Houston last year. And then the Bills, at 28, right? They need receiver, and they get a call from Brett Veach. That Brett Veach, and they go, rather than saying like "F off," they go, "Yeah, all right, we'll trade with you at 32.
Yeah, go on. You have him.
You can take the fastest player ever at the combine, Xavier Worthy, at 28, because Patrick Mahomes wants him."
Because he wants a new Tyreek Hill. Yeah,
How is that
Yeah.
number not blocked?
exactly.
Honestly,
Just out of
makes no
principle,
isn't it?
sense.
Absolute
Makes
madness.
no sense.
They're my losers of the draft, the Bills, just for what they've done there. I don't care what they end up drafting in the end. You can't do that. You can't. You'd be better off trading with the Patriots or the Dolphins or the Jets. You can't
Yeah.
trade with them.
Mm.
They've screwed your franchise for the last like 5 years. Your window's shut because of them, and you're still doing trades with them.
Doesn't make any
Crazy,
sense.
crazy. I'm not a massive Xavier Worthy fan, to be honest, but I mean, he does at least stretch the field for the Chiefs, and they want to go back to that, like the first album they had, where they were spraying the ball down the field rather than the dink and dunk they had to evolve into when defenses change. I think it's just a genius move because defenses try and emulate what they're doing, and then they go back to the first one. So they have to relearn how
Go
to
back.
stop that shot down the field that they didn't have to last couple of seasons. I think it's a good move, but I think they were better wide receivers, to be honest. 2 of them went at the end of the draft as well. Quickly though, the Cowboys took Tyler Guyton, the tackle, after moving down. I mean, he's all right. I don't think he's really a first round talent, but
As I said in the draft, I'm not an enormous fan.
yeah. The Ravens took Nate Wiggins, the slender cornerback from Clemson. I'm very happy about this because he can get knocked off the ball very easily. So he's quick. He's like a fly, but can he actually stop you if you're like a big-bodied receiver? I don't know.
They'll put
see.
him on a steak and Guinness diet and stick him in the weight room. He'll be
We'll
fine.
see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
and he'll play
Might break his knees.
special teams and nickel into the first year or so.
Mhm. Hopefully that doesn't work out.
Baltimore know what they're doing with defensive backs. He'll be fine.
There's no defensive lineman. I'm not sure about backs. And then the San Francisco 49ers indicate to everyone that they're not keeping either Debo or Ayuk, one or both, because they drafted Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver from Florida, a guy that has completely atoned for himself, in my opinion. I think Dave as well. Looking at him last season, he had rectified all the things that made him terrible up to that last season. So we'll see how it goes, but could be
Listen,
an
man,
absolute touch for the 49ers.
Could also be a disaster, leopard spots and
It
all
could.
that. Let's not start singing too much yet. There's still a little
Let's
bit of-
hope it's the latter.
Yeah, I think going on the Ayuk thing, I think there's a lot of teams who are put off by Brandon Ayuk's actions. The whole diva wide receiver thing, I don't think any of us penciled that label on Brandon Ayuk, but in the past couple of weeks, he's really forced that label onto himself, demanding a trade, demanding more money, demanding to be a number one, saying I'm good enough and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of teams just like, do you know what? We just don't need that headache.
He did have a great year though last year.
He did,
He
but
was one
even
of the
still,
top receivers.
even still,
We'll see.
Bills
They're
could
not
give
getting
him
a
a
first
call.
rounder for him now.
yeah,
So-
no one's traded for him, so read the room.
Just as a quick side, I do want to kind of put that into my little bucket of I'm not sure John Lynch is a great general manager anymore. His first draft, he managed to fleece the Bears for Mitch Trubisky to move down one spot. And I thought, okay, that's genius. But everything he's done since has just been a little bit off. It's just been. I've not been convinced with a lot of the the 49ers moves. I mean, they drafted a bloody kicker in the 3rd round last year, and that kind of put the boot.
I get what you're saying. The problem you've got is that when you get down into these teams, the championship teams, and so on and so forth, it's so difficult to say that's the one piece that will tip us over the edge, and so on and so forth. Is he any worse than anybody else? I'm not sure he is. I think Lynch has done a good job since he's been there. Maybe it's just getting a little bit stale in San Francisco.
He's just not the Messiah, is all I'm saying.
New ideas.
It's easy to draft someone if you're selecting in the top 10 because you've got a defined player and a defined list of top candidates, and then in the second round you're picking early. You're picking in the 30s or late 20s, then you're picking late 20s, and then you're picking 40s, late.
It is, and the difference
much
is
more difficult.
if you're picking in the top 10, that means you've been a bad team, so that player can make an impact straight away. Whereas if you're picking in the late 20s, early 30s, you're looking at minuscule changes that might just make that difference between a championship game and a Super Bowl. So, it's a lot easier to make a big splash early, and when you're a successful team over a number of years, it gets harder and harder to do that.
I think John Lynch's power has been getting people in free agency. The likes of Chase Young, the likes of Randy Gregory coming in. I think it's Trent Williams. He's brought loads of people in free agency for not very much. The thing is, he's had a couple of big misses with, for example.
The thing with the draft for these sorts of organizations that are so well oiled is they're just looking to add pieces here or there that are building blocks for it's the longevity piece and a bit of depth in that. Seasons to come, they can then rely on them a bit more. But when they've got the squad that they have at the moment and the pool that they've got in free agency, they don't need to go and make a splash.
I'm sorry for derailing it. It's just I thought it was a bit more canny than it seems to be turning out to be in some of these more recent drafts. I just think that you could have played his cards a bit closer to the chest. Now it feels like he's expecting, and you can't really ask for as much from one of your wide receivers on the trade, but that's just me. The final pick of the first night was the Panthers actually moving back up into the first round, one pick more. The Bills just giving up life completely and saying, all right, you can take Xavier Legette, keeping him in Carolina. Awesome. Obviously, I wished he'd have come to the Steelers in round 2, but not to be. So, yeah, nice to see the Panthers taking someone that they desperately need. They need a target for Bryce Young, other than Adam Thielen, and they got it. So I think that's a great pickup for Carolina. And now, of course, you've got the Bills sitting at 33, getting all sorts of phone calls from other teams. Once at the first time, will they trade down for a third time? Who knows? Let's have a think about that now.
Probably.
It is
the Bills.
Well,
it will be Kansas moving up to 33.
Yeah, at the moment it's Buffalo, then New England, Arizona, Washington, the Chargers, Titans, and then the Panthers, and then Washington again. So Washington got 2 picks in the next 10. Maybe we have a quick think about what's going next. Do we think that if let's say Buffalo sticks with a pick, who are they going for?
I think they should go for Cooper DeJean because they need help in their secondary, as well as needing a receiver.
I think that's the secret in this draft, though, isn't it? It's there are lots of receivers that can make a difference. There's still a few cornerbacks. I think teams picking in the next 10 will be looking in those 2 areas in particular, because there will still be a few players with like Kool-Aid, McConkey, etc., Rakestraw even, that possibly had first round potential and first round grades that have now slipped into the second round. So there'll be a bit of a bum fight for these next 10 or 12 picks, I expect.
Yeah. But I think just looking at it, I think you're right that the Bills need to do something. One of the top players remaining, maybe looking at the best player available. Patriots, they're going to have to do something else in terms of wide receiver, I guess, because Drake May's got no one to throw at. Arizona can do whatever they like.
I don't think Drake May's going to play next season.
Really?
Well, not next season. He's not going to start. He's not going to be a day one starter. I was talking to a Patriots fan earlier on today, and
keep doing that to yourself.
There's a lot of them. And the
Not
Patriots
anymore, there
fans,
aren't.
they love telling you what they think as well. No, and he was saying that he doesn't expect him to start in the first 4 or 5 weeks. I think is perfectly valid. If they lose the first 3 games badly,
Hang
it
on,
becomes
who's
more
the
difficult
other
to keep him
quarterback?
out.
Is it
but-
Brissett? Yeah. So
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, it's Jacoby.
I'd be amazed if he starts before week 8 at the earliest.
Yeah, I
Mm.
subscribe to that theory as well. If you lose the first 3 badly, depending on the schedule as well, if they're division games, and all of a sudden,
but
you know what Boston's like,
you've still got to think
noise
to the
and
future and go,
all
well, we
that.
might have been battered in all these games, but
You
at
see,
least we're not
that's your
getting the rookie
mistake thinking
killed.
that they think about the future. Yeah. But it's when the noise becomes too much. But yeah, they got Jacoby Brissett, so they'll
I'm
be fine.
interested to hear from you chaps. Who do you think won day 1?
Chicago.
Yeah, I agree.
Chicago.
I think it's Chicago.
Lions.
Chicago.
No, Chicago.
You have more
Chicago
than one.
they've never. No, you
No, you
can't.
can't.
They've never
Oh.
had.
It's
They've
winner,
never-
All
not
right, it's the
winners.
Bears then.
They've never had a quarterback who's thrown more than 30 touchdowns in a season. It's ridiculous. Okay, let's play another game. Apart from Chicago and our own teams,
Oh, bollocks.
Jim, I'm looking at you. Who do we think has won it?
Falcons. They big brained it. So I mean, the move up for the Lions was great to get Terry and Arnold.
I like what the Lions did. I like what the Vikings did.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings positions of need went and got the players they wanted. Didn't mess about with it too
Cardinals
much.
as well, not messing about.
Yeah, but they ended up with JJ McCarthy. So
Well,
Yeah, well,
I respect the kahunas.
Respectfully, any quarterback drafted this year, we're not going to know for three years plus as to whether they're going to
We
be any
might.
good or not. Caleb
Ooh, I
Williams might
disagree.
turn into Jamarcus Russell by the time we get to the season.
I
So
I disagree. There's some of them we might know by week 6 that they're a load of tosh. Who knows? Who's won it? Arizona. Arizona's had a good draft. I think.
Arizona's done all right.
Cards have done well,
And the thing is,
painfully.
do you know what? Arizona should win this draft because they've got 319 picks, and by the time we hit Sunday, you should be going, Finn. You should be going, bloody hell! I'm not looking forward to playing them.
Well, it's usually a guaranteed
rides
2 wins,
over.
but I fear after this draft it might not be. We'll find
well,
out.
that was it. That's the first night done.
No, not so
Dave,
quick. Not
I've
so
got to edit
quick.
this still.
Biggest loser.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins massively.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
shout. That is a shout. Okay. Apart from Kirk Cousins.
The Bills. You moved down twice. You've been cut out of your position.
Yeah, but they've got draft capital for it.
So what? So
yeah, but they've been shafted by the Chiefs
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, maybe.
They let it
we
happen as well.
don't know if the Chiefs' new wide receiver is going to be any good. He might just be another John Ross. Who knows?
The Rams taking Jared Verse.
Come on, the Rams. You've got to give the Rams a little bit of leeway. It's their first pick since 2016.
It
so
is, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they've
Short of it's
got
not
no
the first
idea
round pick,
what's
yeah.
going on. They're normally like, "What you mean we have to turn up to work on a Thursday? What's going on?"
I'll put the Titans in there as well because I think that Latham's
Worth
just
the
a
school,
guard.
innit?
I think he's worth the pick. But that's the first night done. We'll be back next week to look at the entire draft and give our final grades on that. But until next time, I've been Jim. That's been Finn. That's been Punk Red. That's been Never Dave. Thank you very much for listening.